This is Wasteland Fatigue Weekly, brought to you by Fatigue Force. All right, survivors, welcome back to Wasteland Fatigue Weekly, the only show brave enough to wade through all the day our survival chatter.
So you don't have to.
Yeah, we're your trusty Fatigue Force, and we're all about bringing you the good stuff straight from the community.
Think of us as like your Wasteland scouts. We go out there, scout the chatter, and bring you back the most valuable intel.
Exactly. Let's talk about what keeps us alive out there in the wasteland, crafting and weapons.
The bread and butter of survival.
Dessert 14 brought up a nice little crafting tip. They noticed that you can now craft vests with a whopping 660 armor right on the workbench.
That's a significant upgrade.
It is. And Dessert 14 pointed out that it's a pretty budget-friendly option too, which is always a plus in the wasteland.
Especially when you can slap some cool skins on those vests.
Yeah, good looking and good protection. What more could you ask for?
Nothing beats a stylish and well-protected survivor.
Now, Dessert 14 also brought up something interesting about reduced usage costs for certain weapons.
Ooh, tell me more.
Specifically, they mentioned several Oriental weapons and the thermodiffuser grenade launcher. And they were wondering what exactly that meant in terms of in-game mechanics.
Cheaper to use those weapons somehow.
Exactly. And Burnout Speedrun offered a plausible explanation. They said it probably translates to cheaper repair prices for those specific weapons.
That would make sense. Keeps those favorite tools in fighting shape for longer.
Right, but then ThemeHow jumped in and expressed some concern.
What were they worried about?
They were questioning if this reduction in repair costs was maybe a bit too much, like it might upset the balance of the game.
Yeah, sometimes those tweaks can have unintended consequences.
For sure. So, listener, have you noticed any major changes in weapon repair costs since the update?
Let us know your thoughts.
Dessert 14 wasn't satisfied with just a vague explanation, and they wanted to know the specifics, like which weapons are actually considered Oriental weapons in DAR?
Yeah, what makes them so special?
And they also wondered if these Oriental weapons were tied to any specific events from the past.
Big question.
ThemeHound seemed pretty certain, saying that yes, those are event-exclusive weapons, most likely melee weapons from what we've seen.
Interesting. So maybe some of those rare event weapons got a nice little buff.
Could be. And speaking of events, Glaxolite had a question about weapon choices for a particularly challenging event, the EMBA.
The EMBA, always a tough one.
It is. And with the crossbow no longer being an option for that event, Glaxolite was looking for some alternative firepower recommendations.
Oh, they came to the right place.
RJ Mechanics stepped up and suggested the formalin gas pistol as a solid choice.
Good option for crowd control.
And they even threw in the Jaren flycatcher as a possibility.
Wait, the flycatcher, is that even considered a weapon?
Well, it's definitely a unique way to fight, and Mochi Reaper suggested the Toxogen as another strong contender for the EMBA.
So we've got gas pistols, plant-based projectiles, and chemical warfare. What's your weapon of choice for the EMBA's listener?
There's no wrong answer as long as it gets the job done. And then Apostle 1 dropped a knowledge bomb that surprised everyone.
I love those.
They said carrying around 1,000+ seeds can actually be surprisingly effective in combat.
Seeds? Really? Like sunflower seeds?
Apparently any kind of seeds will do. Who knew your garden could be your secret weapon?
That's amazing. I've got to try that.
Right. So, listener, have you ever experimented with seed warfare in DAR?
Let us know your experiences.
Maybe we should give out a virtual Green Thumb Warrior award for the most creative seed-based combat strategy.
I'm in all right. Back to weapon specifics. Dessert 14 circled back to the repair cost discussion, wanting to know if the reduction applied to all weapons or just those specific Oriental weapons and the thermodiffuser.
From what we've gathered, it seems like it's just those specific items that got the price break.
Okay, so a targeted buff.
Exactly. Now, Lang2A7 brought up an interesting weapon comparison. They were talking about the LMG and how with the Hail of Blade perk at level 3, it only costs 4 rifle ammo per shot.
That's pretty efficient.
It is, especially when you compare it to the PKM, which guzzles a whopping 12 rifle ammo per shot.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is, and Lang2A7 pointed out that the damage output for both weapons is pretty much the same, and the LMG even has a nice little trap effect.
So the LMG is looking like a strong contender for ammo conservation.
Definitely. And then Chronomageddon jumped in with a more high-risk, high-reward option, the Desert Eagle.
The classic hand cannon.
They said it delivers more damage per energy point spent, but of course you got to keep it fed with ammo.
Yeah, ammo scarcity is a real concern in the Wasteland.
So listen, we're curious, what's your go-to weapon when the Wasteland throws its worst at you?
Is it all about ammo efficiency raw power or something completely different?
Let us know in the comments why you love your chosen weapon.
We might even award a virtual Wasteland Weapon Master title to the most popular pick.
Now let's shift gears and talk about keeping our precious gear in tip-top shape. because Zerstore 9867 had a couple of questions about the special B4 power armor.
Ooh, that's some high-level gear.
It is. And Zerstore 9867 wanted to know if it's repairable and if it can disappear completely when it reaches 0 durability.
I can see why they'd be worried losing that armor would be a major setback.
For sure. Thankfully, RJ Mechanics came to the rescue and confirmed that, yes, the B4 power armor is repairable. You just need some specific components.
That's a relief.
It is. And even better news, it won't just vanish into thin air when it's broken.
It's a no-poofing armor.
Exactly. Themehelm clarified that it simply reaches a broken state of 0 durability, and you can then repair it back to its former glory.
Phew, close call for all the B4 power armor owners out there.
Yeah, I think we all breathed a collective sigh of relief when we heard that. And Desert 14 later pointed out that repairing the Guando from almost broken 5 out of 75 durability all the way back to full only costs around 13K currency.
That's not bad, considering how powerful the Guando is.
Every little bit of saved currency helps.
Absolutely. Speaking of currency, let's dive into the world of Wasteland economics, because Desmo0228 had a question about trading. The lifeblood of the Wasteland economy.
They wanted to know if the titanium pot is tradable.
That's a rare find.
It is. And RJ Mechanics dropped some knowledge saying that, yes, it's tradable, and get this, it's the only titanium item you can trade.
Wow, so if you got a spare titanium pot, you might be sitting on a gold mine.
Or titanium mine,
Yeah.
I guess. So, listener, what's the most valuable trade you've ever pulled off in Oriental?
Tell us your secrets.
Maybe we'll award a virtual Wasteland Tycoon title for the most impressive deal.
And on a less savory note, Burnout Speedrun shared a cautionary tale about a potential scam involving a large water tray.
Ugh, scams, those are the worst.
They are. It seems like the agreed-upon payment wasn't fully honored, leaving Burnout Speedrun high and dry.
A reminder that trust is a precious commodity in the Wasteland. Always be careful out there, folks.
For sure. Now let's move on to something a bit more glamorous events and those sweet, sweet skins.
Gotta look good while surviving the apocalypse.
Exactly. And the EMBA event was definitely a hot topic, with players buzzing about skin boxes and drop rates.
Always a mystery.
Desert 14 had a practical question about what happens when you get duplicate skins.
Happens to the best of us.
Indeed, and thankfully Burnout Speedrun and Daimo Sheep clarified that you get those shiny discs as a refund.
Not a bad consolation prize.
Those discs can add up over time, especially if you're a dedicated skin collector.
And Desert 14 had their eyes on a particular skin, the kitchen skin for expedition food.
Ooh, that one's pretty popular.
It is, with its plus 50% speed search buff. Who wouldn't want that?
Makes those scavenging trips a lot more efficient.
Right, and Desert 14 was also trying to figure out the best way to get those discs. They were asking about the costs of different chests.
A strategic approach to skin acquisition.
Exactly, and Daima Sheep offered some advice, suggesting that prioritizing the first or second chest might be the way to go, depending on what specific items you're after, like Aya.
Always good to have a plan.
It is. And speaking of Aya, Apostle 1 admitted to wanting all the EMBA skins, even the kitchen skin.
Gotta catch 'em all, right?
The Wasteland Pokemon gotta catch them all. And for those who are enjoying the EMBA zones, Desert 14 had a question about whether those special cities keep respawning after you finish the main storyline.
I'd love to know that too. Keeps the exploration going.
RJ Mechanics confirmed that yes, they do respawn with the exception of the contaminated university.
So there's still plenty of reason to revisit those areas.
Plenty of loot and danger still lurking in those EMBA cities. And Apostle 1 was pretty proud to announce that they finally managed to snag the forged skin.
Ooh, that's a tough one to get.
It is congrats to Apostle 1 on that achievement. And in a moment of wishful thinking, Desert 14 wondered if owning some skins already might increase the drop rate for the ones you're still missing.
I've often wondered that myself.
Daima Sheep offered some hope, saying that once you've collected a few skins, the game does seem to favor giving you shards for the ones you don't have.
Fingers crossed for that last elusive skin shard.
Now let's talk about setting up shop in the Wasteland, because Severance 8793 had some fundamental questions about base building.
Back to basics.
Exactly. They wanted to know how to get fire for cooking, which of course means a campfire.
The heart of any wasteland settlement.
And they also asked about thunder for a water purifier, which we all know means electricity from a generator.
The other essential element for a comfortable base.
Severance 8773 also inquired about building a brick oven. But here's the twist. They wanted to know if they could use it for taking a bath.
A brick oven bath? Now that's creative.
Talk about wasteland ingenuity. Daima Sheep and Apostle 1 confirmed that a brick oven is indeed a buildable structure.
So a post-apocalyptic spa day might be within reach.
Maybe we'll see a new trend sweeping the wasteland brick oven bath parties.
I'd be down for that. Now, Bix Matrix was struggling with a common wasteland problem, inventory management.
Too much loot, not enough space.
A classic dilemma, and Apostle One offered some sage advice, suggesting that Bix Matrix drop off any heavy, non-essential gear at a permanent settlement.
Basically create a central storage hub.
Exactly. Travel light and only carry what you absolutely need.
Sound advice in Bix Matrix also wanted to know what settlements look like on the map.
For those who haven't stumbled upon one yet.
They're marked with flags, and yes, you can add your own custom markers to them for easy navigation.
Gotta love those map customization options.
Now, out in the wasteland, you're bound to encounter some less-than-friendly creatures, and Desert 14 was discussing ways to boost resistance against biomutants.
Those things are nasty.
They are, and Desert 14 mentioned stacking premium armor ADA and rest buffs to reach a decent 60% resistance.
Every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
Huh?
And players also got into a debate about the effectiveness of melee weapons against biomutants, specifically in the EMBA.
Yeah, some people swear by melee, others prefer ranged combat.
Sheep leaned towards ranged combat for the EMBA, suggesting that melee might not be the best option against those heavily armored foes.
What do you think listener melee or ranged for the NBA?
Share your combat preferences in the comments. Desert 14 also shared a clever tactic for dealing with those exploding biomutants.
Those are the worst.
They are. But Desert 14 figured out that using spears to keep them at a distance is a pretty effective way to avoid getting caught in the blast.
Smart thinking, keep those explosions at arm's length.
Severance 8793 had a question about base progress resetting, and Apostle 1 confirmed that the bottom right tab, the Survivor Camp, has been stuck at level 0 for a while now.
So no worries about losing progress there.
And of course, the legendary Chernobyl bear boss came up in conversation.
Everyone's favorite radioactive nightmare.
Desert 14 was curious about using cyber turrets against the bear, specifically their effectiveness and range.
Those turrets pack a punch.
They do. And RG Mechanics speculated that they might shoot area of effect projectiles, making them even more potent.
That would be devastating.
It would, but Apostle 1 chimed in with some insider info. Apparently, the Chernobyl bear has 2 brains.
2 brains? What does that even mean?
Your guess is as good as mine, but it sounds like it makes the bear resistant to certain tactics.
Double the brains, double the trouble.
And Apostle 1 also warned that the smaller bears, spawned by the boss, do splash damage.
Ouch. So even the little ones are dangerous.
Don't underestimate them. And Geomechanics suggested that the Jiren Flycatcher might be a better option than turrets for taking on the Chernobyl bear.
Interesting. So plant power over tech.
Sometimes nature knows best. And speaking of the Flycatcher, Desert 14 wanted to know the crafting cost for those handy seeds.
Gotta keep those flycatchers well fed.
It's 1 biomass, 1 water, and 1 rotten meat.
Not too bad a price for some airborne backup.
And Apostle 1 added a crucial detail. Those flycatcher seeds take a turn to grow, and they start with very low HP.
So no instant gratification with the flycatcher.
Gotta plan your attack strategically. Now let's talk about some quality of life improvements and recent game updates. Kuyakris 2005 was hoping for the return of being able to disassemble arrows,
Yeah, that would be a nice feature to have back.
especially for those who rely on bows and crossbows.
Every arrow counts.
And Merkava 0420 ran into some trouble with the PC update via Play Beta.
Tech issues, always a pain.
Thankfully, Sheep came to the rescue, suggesting that Merkava 0420 check their Google updater.
Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
And Burnout Speedrun and others discussed some other recent updates, including a fix for the watch button on EBA skins,
Glad they fixed that.
and the addition of the Wolfsbane grenade to the rewards from the Overgrown Convoy.
Ooh, a new toy to play with.
And in a moment of pure wasteland humor, Apostle 1 joked about a new item, the EMBA spoon.
The EMBA spoon? What could that be for?
Your guess is as good as mine, listener. Leave your best theories in the comments. Maybe it's for scooping up those rare EMBA mushrooms.
Or maybe it's a multi-tool, a spoon, fork, and knife all in one.
The possibilities are endless. All right, finally, let's talk about getting around this massive wasteland, because Desert 14 wanted to know the max speed of the Belly Z truck.
The Belly Z, that thing's a beast.
It is, and it can reach a top speed of 50 kilometers.
Not bad, but a bit slower than the KRAZ.
True, but the Belly Z has some advantages. It boasts a crazy carrying capacity,
Yeah, you can haul a whole lot of stuff in that thing.
and it doesn't use any fuel.
Now that's a game changer.
So speed versus storage. What's your priority, listener?
Let us know your preferred wasteland ride.
Langchu argued that the helicopter is still the king of travel speed, even with its hefty fuel costs.
Can't beat that aerial view.
And Silly Dream was looking for some general vehicle advice.
Always good to get some expert opinions.
Dymasheep recommended the GAZ as a good starting point, then moving on to the ZIL and eventually the KRAV.
A solid progression path.
But ugly Y. Through a curveball, they're a big fan of the Bell AZ for its sheer size.
I love that imposing presence.
However, Shida Mechanics pointed out that getting a Bell AZ takes a significant time investment and might not be the best option for a newer player at level 58.
So choose your vehicle wisely, folks.
Now, for some general tips and random questions that popped up in the community, Bahita was wondering if there's a way to play music from other apps while playing DayR on a phone,
Yeah, it can get a little lonely out there in the wasteland.
especially during those long grinding sessions.
Some background tunes would be nice.
Right. But it seems like the game might not play nicely with other audio apps.
Hopefully they'll add that feature in a future update.
Fingers crossed, and Bahita and Dessert 14 had a discussion about the usefulness of books for gaining experience.
Ah, the age-old debate books or brawls.
Bahita felt that fighting was a more efficient way to level up.
Nothing like some good old-fashioned monster slaying.
But Dessert 14 suggested focusing on more valuable loot like saves and skin boxes and holding off on opening those books until after the EMBA event.
A strategic approach to knowledge acquisition.
What do you think, listener books or brawls for experience points?
Let us know your preferred leveling strategy.
Weebenor wanted to know if the dual gun is any good.
Dual wielding always looks cool.
It does, and the general consensus seems to be that yes, the dual gun is a solid weapon.
It hacks a punch.
However, Bahita Kunon cautioned that you can't merge event-specific pistols.
So no ultimate dual wielding combo.
Not yet, at least. And Severance 8793, who's new to the Wasteland, was feeling a bit overwhelmed by the game's complexity.
It can be a lot to take in at first.
They wish there was a cheat sheet for item trade values.
That would be super helpful for new players.
Definitely, maybe we can put something like that together for a future episode.
I like that idea.
Bicket's Matrix wanted to know the maximum player level.
For those who aspire to wasteland greatness.
It's a level 100, a long road, but achievable.
Gotta keep those goals high.
And player. The kids and girls shared a rather interesting memory about the 2016 version of the game.
The good old days.
Apparently, cannibalism was a thing back then.
Wow, the wasteland was a even wilder place back then.
Times have changed, thankfully, Flair. Had a couple of questions. They were wondering about upgrading workbenches.
Essential for crafting those high-level items.
And they were also trying to find their lost starting boat.
Wait, what? Their starting boat?
Yeah, apparently they set sail at the beginning of the game, and now they can't find it.
Talk about a needle in a haystack.
RJ Mechanics gently advised against launching a full-scale search and rescue mission for the boat, citing fuel and time costs.
Yeah, some things are best left lost.
Especially when there are more pressing matters to attend to, like surviving the apocalypse.
Exactly. And Dessert 14 raised a good point about in-game logic.
Hit us with it.
They were wondering why we can generate electricity with generators, but we can't produce or recharge batteries. Seems like a missed opportunity for some sustainable wasteland living.
I agree. Maybe the devs will consider adding that feature in the future.
We can hope, and Buck's Matrix was back with another storage question, which led back to the idea of establishing a permanent settlement as a central hub.
Gotta love those full circle moments.
Organization is key in the wasteland.
Several players were asking about crafting dried meat or fish.
A classic survival food.
And Apostle 1 clarified that it's not currently a craftable item unless you happen to have a drying rack from older versions of the game.
Ah, those legacy items sometimes come in handy.
They do. Crack95 confirmed that they still have a drying rack from way back when.
A true wasteland veteran.
Apostle 1 later mentioned that in the later stages of the game, backpacks are often valued more for their buffs than their carrying capacity.
Makes sense when you've got all the essential
They're
gear.
looking for those extra advantages.
Exactly, and Silly Dream, who's a level 58 newcomer, was looking for tips on how to make money. The eternal struggle.
They were finding looting to be inefficient.
Yeah, looting alone won't make you rich.
They might need to explore some other options like trading resource gathering or taking on some of the more lucrative quests.
Plenty of ways to make a living in the wasteland.
Pontus333 inquired if those returning old items with special boosts are consumable or permanent.
Good question, because those boosts can be pretty powerful.
They can, and ugly why. Guess that they won't deplete, similar to the Bad Bear item.
Hopefully they're right.
We need all the permanent boosts we can get. Tommy22CO3, a returning player after a 5-year hiatus, was looking for some general advice.
Welcome back to the wasteland.
Things have changed quite a bit in 5 years.
We'll have to get you up to speed. And finally, Yiffy EVI08 was wondering why new players don't see their level displayed right away.
A bit of a mystery.
Apparently it pops up after you've played for a bit.
Gotta earn those levels.
So there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of all the latest and greatest day our survival chatter.
Straight from the heart of the community.
We've covered everything from loot boxes and weapon strategies to base building and wasteland economics.
And we couldn't have done it without you, the amazing day our survival community.
You guys are the ones out there on the front lines exploring, experimenting, and sharing your knowledge.
So keep those questions, comments, and stories coming.
We love hearing about your wasteland adventures. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode.
Subscribe to stay updated on all things Wasteland Fatigue Weekly.
And ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single deep dive.
Now for a little teaser of what's to come in our next Wasteland Fatigue Weekly.
Get ready for something special.
We might just be tackling some of those truly hardcore locations on the map.
Those places that make even seasoned survivors tremble.
Or perhaps we'll dive into the fascinating world of player-created lore.
Uncovering the hidden stories and legends of the wasteland.
You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
And until then, stay safe out there, survivors.
Keep your Geiger counters handy, and remember, the wasteland is always evolving.
This has been Wasteland Fatigue Weekly.
We're the Fatigue Force signing off.
Over and out.
Good luck out there.
Stay hydrated.
And may the RNG gods be ever in your favor.
See ya.
Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
So long.
Farewell.
And thanks for listening.
We appreciate you.
You're the best.
The absolute best.
We couldn't do it without you.
You're the reason we do this.
So until next time,
Happy surviving.
keep on surviving.
And we'll catch you in the wasteland. Bye.